Okay, so have you ever watched a show that just explodes off the screen? Incredible visuals, kinetic action, but then you realize, wait, it's also making some really sharp, like incisive comments about our own world. That's exactly what we're diving into today with the anime series Akudama Drive.
Yeah.
Our mission here is to pull apart this amazing analysis we've got, exploring how it uses the cyberpunk genre, well, not just for spectacle write-up, but to critique society, to redefine what we even call crime, and maybe even reimagine what it means to be human. We've got a fantastic breakdown covering its influences, the world building, which is unique, and those absolutely captivating character arcs.
Yeah, and you know, what's truly compelling here is that Akudama Drive isn't content to simply be another entry in the cyberpunk genre. It feels more like a self-aware meta-commentary. It's consciously engaging with its cinematic and literary legacy. You know, it takes that familiar, high-tech, low-life aesthetic we all know, but then it aggressively amps up the punk side of cyberpunk, and that's really fundamental to its whole message.
Oh, absolutely. It nails that classic rain-slick, neon-drenched vibe you'd expect. You can totally see the inspiration from giants like Blade Runner or maybe Ghost in the Shell. But then, like you said, it injects this raw, character-driven energy, almost like 1990s crime cinema, especially Tarantino.
Right, the Reservoir Dogs connection is pretty clear.
Yeah, that disparate group of codenamed criminals, all forced together for this insane high-stakes heist. It's this fascinating hybrid approach, part philosophical sci-fi, part just pure adrenaline thriller. Now let's talk about the world itself. Because, wow, Akudama Drive doesn't give us just some generic future city. The creators deliberately crafted this Showa-Retro cyberpunk aesthetic for Kansai. It makes the city feel like a character itself. What makes that visual identity so striking, do you think?
Well, I think that's where a lot of its unique power comes from, actually. The art director, Yoshio Tanioka, he grounded the design in Japan, Kansai, and Showa, specifically modeling the cityscape on, like, 1960s and 70s Osaka. And this creates this incredibly powerful juxtaposition. You see these quaint, almost old-fashioned residential houses, Showa-era telephone poles, and they're aggressively overlaid with these towering postmodern buildings, holograms everywhere, blinding neon lights.
Right.
It's that classic high-tech, low-life thing, but with this very specific, recognizable historical anchor. It gives it a kind of distinct melancholy.
So the Showa-Retro look, it's doing more than just looking cool. It's acting as this poignant visual critique of unrealized techno-utopian promises, right?
Exactly.
The Showa period in Japan had this huge faith in technology for a better future, you know, rapid growth, optimism. But in Akudama Drive's Kansai, that advanced tech is mostly for corporate ads and, well, authoritarian control. Think holographic billboards advertising public executions, not like societal progress.
Yeah, it's grim.
It really is. It's like the visual ghost of a failed future haunting the present. And it's got this distinctly Japanese sense of sadness, maybe, for what might have been.
And that historical haunting gets amplified by the geopolitical context, which is pretty dire. Kansai is basically a vassal state to the dominant Kanto.
Right.
That came about after a devastating war where Kanto literally dropped a bomb on Kansai. So Kanto is always presented as this sterile, godlike utopia through nonstop propaganda, while Kansai is decadent, heavily policed, and basically exists to serve its conqueror. It sets up this deeply unequal relationship.
And it's not even simple domination, is it? There's this really twisted symbiosis going on between Kanto and Kansai.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Because Kanto, we find out later, isn't even physical. It's a disembodied digital consciousness facing its own kind of decay. So it relies on Kansai as a resource pool, and crucially as this, like, laboratory for creating immortal human vessels it needs to survive.
And in return, Kansai gets just enough resources to keep existing in subjugation. It's a dark bargain.
Very dark, especially for Kansai, yeah.
And the ultimate symbol of Kanto's control, its real power, is the Shinkansen, the high-speed train.
Ah, the train.
Yeah. To the people in Kansai, it's presented as this sacred object, this divine link to the utopia of Kanto. They're taught to almost worship it.
Right.
But in reality, it's the heavily fortified pipeline through which Kanto extracts its tribute, those immortal children we mentioned.
And how it maintains absolute control over Kansai.
Exactly.
Right.
So the main heist in the story, getting onto that train, it's not just a crime. It's framed as this act of profound sacrilege against the state's power, its manufactured divinity.
And beyond the physical stuff like the train, the state keeps order through just pervasive surveillance and media manipulation. It's everywhere. The cityscape itself feels like a digital panopticon, the system where everyone feels watched. all the time.
Right, constant monitoring.
And it broadcasts state-sanctioned violence as public spectacle. Live executions of Akudama become mass entertainment. It feels deliberately designed to normalize violence, fuel fear, maybe hatred of anyone the state labels as other.
Which raises that important question. How do you actually brainwash a whole population to just passively accept this brutal reality? Especially when kids are being taken.
Yeah, how?
Well, the most insidious tool they have is probably that children's TV show, Rabbit and Shark.
Oh, Rabbit and Shark.
Creepy.
Totally creepy. It uses hand puppets, this really simple, reassuring format, but it delivers core propaganda. It frames Kanto's rule as benevolent and Akudama as pure evil, reducing everything complex to this black and white fairy tale.
It basically treats adults like children, right? Demanding passive acceptance, infantilizing the population.
Exactly. It stifles any critical thought.
But then, in this brilliant thematic reversal, the show demonstrates that even those systems of control can be flipped. In the finale, that same Rabbit and Shark broadcast gets hijacked to show Swindler's martyrdom, turning the very medium of complacency into this catalyst for a revolutionary awakening.
Yeah, it shows that the tools of control are unstable. They can be turned back on their creators. So the real depth of Akudama Drive starts to emerge when we peel back the layers of Kanto itself. What starts as this high-octane heist thriller, it shifts pretty dramatically. It becomes this profound exploration of posthumanism, really challenging our ideas about humanity's evolution and maybe its fate.
Indeed. Because Kanto isn't a physical utopia at all. It's revealed to be this vast, abstract quantum computer containing the digitized consciousnesses of its entire population.
Wow.
They uploaded themselves to escape mortality after the war. So this is a direct engagement with posthumanism, you know, humanity evolving beyond biology.
Right, like the ghosts and shells in Ghost in the Shell were shedding the meat in Gibson.
Exactly. But unlike Ghost in the Shell's maybe more nuanced take, Kanto's version feels like they lost something essential in that pursuit of immortality, like a ghost without a shell, maybe, but also without empathy. Transcendence became a kind of stasis, a dead end.
And that connects back to the Shinkansen again, that divine link. It's absolute disinfection zone. That's not about physical cleaning, is it?
No, not at all. It's a technological process. It's designed to separate minds from bodies, trapping consciousness in these simulated realities built from their happiest memories.
A consensual hallucination, like Gibson's Matrix concept, a world built on illusion.
Right. And you can only get out through external disruption or this like terrible awakening.
And the Kanto AI's ultimate plan, the thing driving the whole plot,
is to achieve true, non-degrading immortality by transferring its collective consciousness into those two artificially engineered children, brother and sister.
Okay.
These kids are meant to be perfect biological hard drives, vessels for a dying digital god. They're not supposed to be individuals at all, just empty containers.
But what's so striking there is the ethical inversion that happens. It's profound.
Totally.
These artificial children, created as objects, subjected to horrific experiments, seen as just vessels. They develop deep empathy, familial love, this fierce desire for individual existence.
They become incredibly human.
Meanwhile, the Kanto AI, which is made up of what were once human minds, it becomes this monolithic, unfeeling entity, driven only by self-preservation, completely lacking empathy.
Yeah. The artificial beings become more human than the transcended humans they were made to serve. It's a powerful twist.
And it presents this really strong subversion of optimistic posthumanist narratives, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Unlike, say, Ghost in the Shell's vision of evolution where humanity might find new forms of existence, Kanto's plan is basically digital vampirism.
Oh, yeah.
It wants to overwrite the children's consciousness, just annihilate their individuality to perpetuate its own stagnant existence. It's a critique of post-humanist ambition when it's divorced from ethics. It argues that a future without empathy isn't evolution. It's extinction of what makes us human.
So moving from that huge societal critique, let's maybe zoom back in on the individuals caught up in the struggle. Because Akudama Drive absolutely embraces the punk in Cyberpunk. It launches this full-throated assault on authoritarianism. And it does that by systematically deconstructing its central concept, the Akudama.
Right. Initially, Akudama are introduced as these legendary S-rank supercriminals. Almost mythical figures, larger than life.
Yeah, like celebrities.
Exactly. But the series immediately starts to erode that definition. Our protagonist, just an ordinary person, gets branded a high-level Akudama, Swindler, for basically dropping a 500 yen coin. a tiny misunderstanding.
Right. It instantly shows how arbitrary and disproportionate the system's judgment is.
And as the story goes on, that label just expands and expands. It starts to cover anyone who challenges the state. Even ordinary citizens protesting peacefully get reclassified as Akudama and targeted for execution.
So the show makes it incredibly clear. Akudama has no real objective moral weight.
Not at all.
It's just a semantic weapon. A tool for social control wielded by Kanto to label and eliminate any threat to the status quo. It's a really potent critique of systemic power, the arbitrary nature of law, and how the definition of crime itself can be manipulated.
And the ones enforcing this arbitrary law, the executioners, the elite police force, they aren't simple villains either.
No, they're complex.
They're fanatical instruments of a corrupt system. They operate under this rigid black and white ideology where justice just means brutal enforcement. They're often shown as more ruthless, more dispassionate, even more destructive than the criminals they hunt.
Yeah, blurring the line.
Totally blurring the line between law enforcement and just state-sanctioned terrorism. Their mandate is clearly to enforce Kanto's will, not protect Kansai's citizens.
And this series even digs into that internal conflict through the character of Executioner Pupil.
Her journey is interesting.
Her initial zeal, her dedication, it gets shaken by events. She starts to question the system's cruelty, especially after witnessing that massacre of ordinary protesters.
Right, you see the cracks forming.
But her end is so tragic, killed by the very cycle of violence she helped perpetuate. It kind of reinforces the anime's pessimistic view of the institution itself, like it's inescapable.
Yeah, it feels like a self-devouring entity. It consumes its own. Yeah. Ultimately, Akudama Drive is just this unapologetic, anti-authoritarian narrative.
Yeah.
A real fuck the police kind of story in the classic punk sense.
Absolutely.
It argues pretty forcefully that radical rebellion is the only possible response to a system that defines justice as simply absolute obedience. And Swindler's journey, going from compliant citizen to top priority enemy, it proves that under a regime like that, anyone can be made a criminal. By circumstance, by arbitrary power.
Yeah.
So the final uprising isn't just physical, it's philosophical. It's rejecting the state's very authority to define criminality. It reclaims that political anger, that anarchic energy from Cyberpunk's roots.
Building on that rejection, let's look at the characters themselves for a minute. The series is really a masterclass in using archetypes, isn't it?
Oh, definitely.
It openly nods to Tarantino's Reservoir Dogs, naming characters by these professional code names: courier, hacker, doctor, brawler, cutthroat, hoodlum.
And that's not lazy writing. It feels like a very deliberate thematic choice.
How so?
Well, the archetypal characterization kind of reduces each character to their core function, their defining drive, right? It reinforces that idea that in this dehumanizing world, identity is external. It's defined by what you do, by the labels society slaps on you.
They are what they do.
Exactly. And it's also just incredibly efficient storytelling. It strips away some individual complexity to really highlight their roles within this broken system.
But the real standout, and where the show really subverts expectations, I think, is the protagonist, Swindler.
Agreed.
She starts as an ordinary person, an innocent bystander. That classic noir archetype almost. Just a normal, law-abiding citizen who gets violently thrown into this criminal underworld she doesn't understand at all. Her journey is completely different from the hardened criminals around her.
But her journey becomes this profound process of radicalization. Forced to adopt the Swindler persona just to survive, she gradually learns to lie, to manipulate. She uses her wits to navigate this brutal world she never asked to be part of. But the pivotal moment, the real shift, is her conscious decision to protect brother and sister, the immortal children.
Right. That changes everything for her.
It shifts her from being a passive victim just trying to survive to being this active agent driven by a moral conviction that goes way beyond the law. She becomes the story's emotional heart.
And then in the finale, she fully embraces that identity. She weaponizes the very label that was forced on her.
It's brilliant.
She manipulates the state's own media, staging her public execution as this huge spectacle of defiance. And that's what ignites the citywide revolution. It's such a direct inversion of the typical cynical cyberpunk protagonist like Kaisen Neuromancer or someone like that.
Yeah, very different arc.
Instead of a lowlife finding a reason to fight, she's a model citizen thrown into the underworld who discovers this higher revolutionary purpose through empathy. Her martyrdom becomes this act of, well, profound hope, really, rejecting the genre's usual nihilism.
So if we connect all that back to the bigger picture, Akudama Drive really does stand as this vibrant, vital contribution to modern cyberpunk. It reminds us that the style, the neon and rain isn't just window dressing. That chaotic energy, the visuals, they're a direct reflection of its anarchic, anti-authoritarian spirit.
Yeah.
And it offers this stark, yet surprisingly hopeful counterpoint to the nihilism you often find in the genre. It champions empathy as a genuinely revolutionary force.
It really is a story about a system so broken that crime becomes the only meaningful form of justice left, and how an ordinary person just refusing to abandon their innocence, their empathy, can actually ignite a revolution. It shows the enduring power of cyberpunk to reflect and critique the anxieties of our own time, pushing beyond just cool aesthetics to deliver a really powerful message. It's unapologetically loud, brutally violent sometimes, and fiercely defiant, but also deeply human underneath it all. So what stands out to you most about this deep dive, thinking about it now? This whole story really makes you wonder, doesn't it, about the subtle ways systems in our own world define what's right and wrong.
Yeah, definitely.
And what happens when that definition becomes fundamentally incompatible with just basic human empathy. Well, we hope this deep dive gave you a useful shortcut to being well informed about Akudama Drive's explosive commentary. Until next time.